Welcome to Bitter Reality Brewing. It's the top 10 tips, tricks, recommendations, hacks, whatever you want to call them. Don't forget, like, subscribe. Thank you again for all the sharing. It's been huge. Hit 1,000 subscribers within 8 months. That was freaking awesome. Awesome. Definitely appreciate it. Need to get this updated by getting some more beer transferred, which I'll be doing later today, but we'll be getting there. Number one, let's get it kicked off to a quick start here. Number one, when you are doing kegging, don't buy new CO2 tanks. Buy used, reconditioned, whatever, unless you have a local place that will refill it. Most places around the country, from my understanding, including here in Jacksonville, well, there is one place that will refill, but I have to leave it there for a few days. So yeah, no. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to buy a brand new CO2 tank. You're going to go to your local place and they're going to swap it with a used one, and it's going to be full. So don't waste your money. Just buy a used or reconditioned CO2 tank. Check with your local home brew shop. I know online sometimes there's some great deals too, but keep in mind sometimes they're a little more expensive because shipping is included, or you got to pay shipping, but something to be aware of. Other thing to be considerate about is find out the price between a 10 and a 20 or 5, whatever pound tank, because the catch is a lot of times it's only a little more for double the CO2. So sometimes it pays to buy a little bit bigger tank if your room, if you have the space for it, of course. But don't buy a new CO2 tank unless you have someone who can refill it for you. Something to be aware of. Number 2, propane. Propane burners. If you're heating your Sparge water in the house on the stove versus on a propane burner, reconsider. Your in-home heating elements can usually get you up somewhere around 12,000 BTUs. Well, you can get a cheap little propane burner that can put out between 20 to 200,000 BTUs, making it a lot faster to heat up that Sparge water and a lot more convenient if you do like I do and you're brewing either outside or maybe in the opening of your garage. Yeah, having that propane tank right there, not with a closed garage, but outside, you can heat the Sparge water, boom, I zap it with my little point and shoot. Yep, I'm ready, and I can start. I don't have to run in the house, run back out of the house, and if you have a spouse who says, what the hell are you doing? You're tracking in dirt. Mine does, so yeah, keep it outside. It's just much more efficient. With that in mind, number 3, if you have a propane burner, especially for your Sparge water, or that's what you're using for your brewing system, especially if you have a grill, keep a spare. It's always better to have a spare propane. So you have an extra tank. As soon as you kick one, you start the next one, you're low on propane. Which leads us into number 4. I didn't know this. I didn't know this for the longest time until someone told me, and it was about 3 years ago. But don't go to Walmart, don't go to your local grocery store and buy a propane tank, or rent it, I guess, because you have a deposit on top of the tank. Most of those propane tanks are only about 3/4 of the way full, if that. Sometimes I've picked them up and I'm like, is this new? What I do instead, and this will save you a lot of money, is I go to my Walmart and I get 2 brand new propane tanks. I know I just said don't do that. Follow me through here. As they get low, I take them to U-Haul, which is close to me. Now there's other places that will fill them, and I fill that. It's a lot cheaper than me buying a tank that is 3/4 full or not even full. I get my tank filled, boom, they last longer, I don't have to run to the store as much, and I keep those tanks for a couple years. Now, once those tanks start looking a little ratty or aged, or the lady at the U-Haul place says, I shouldn't fill this, then I do the swap out at Walmart or wherever, and I get new ones again and give them those, and they can go recondition them or whatever they need to do to make them pretty again. Allows me to keep my costs down while keeping my propane full. So, something to be aware of. Number 5. This is all about, we're going to get into a theme here. This is all about chocolate. I know it's close to Christmas. I know I'm dating the video, but hey, it is what it is. If you're into chocolate and you want to add chocolate to your beer, the next 6 tips are all for you. Number 5, when adding chocolate can be problematic because of the oils in the chocolate, or the fat, should we say, which will kill your head retention. It's not a big deal if you're doing like a stout or a porter, but keep in mind that if you're putting that chocolate in early too, the sugar is going to get fermented out because your yeast is going to eat most of that sugar, and it's going to leave you with more of the bitterness of the chocolate and the chocolate flavor, but it's also going to kill the head retention. So Keep that in mind, because when you're adding that bitterness, and it's all really about the bitterness here for number 5, is that you're adding hops to balance it. So if your chocolate adds more bitterness, you may not want to add as much on the hops, and kind of pull it back, keep the IBUs a little low, so that way you're not going to have a super bitter chocolate, whatever it is. Unless you like dark chocolate like I do and you want it super bitter, then hey, go for it. Number 6, when trying to enhance the flavors in a beer, any beer, especially let's say chocolate, we'll use that as a great example. Keep in mind, whether you're adding chocolate grains to get your actual chocolate, or even fruit or spices, consider adding something that will actually help add a bit more body and allow that flavor to kind of linger on your palate. Good examples: lactose, which is aka milk sugar, oatmeal, wheat, any flaked grains such as barley, wheat, oatmeal, even rye, although rye is going to give you a little spice, and that's something to be aware of because it can play really nice on some other flavors, especially if you're doing like a winter ale or something like that. Those, I don't even know how to explain it, but basically if you've ever had an oatmeal stout, you know what I'm talking about. You get that nice slow lingering of that chocolate and a little bit of the coffee roast if it's in there. It just adds a lot. And you'll notice when I'm brewing a lot of things where I'm doing flavors, whether it's, raspberry, whatever it may be, although I like to add it to my stouts just for flat out, just the way I am. But I try to add a little wheat, or I add some oatmeal. I add something that's gonna give it, especially the flaked grains, that's gonna give it that better mouthfeel so that I can let that flavor linger for a moment. I don't want a quick lager or, straight Pilsner. Now I do, but not for flavoring unless I'm gonna add something to it. So just something to keep in mind. Number 7, when adding chocolate, if you must and want to avoid the fat, you just gotta add chocolate. My chocolate grains just won't make it chocolatey enough. I would like to argue a little, but hey, I have to add chocolate. Consider adding it either, of course, through your grains, or consider adding cocoa powder, because it has no fat. So there's no concern about head retention problems. I will say sometimes you need to add a little more of the cocoa powder because most of it will settle out, but something to be aware of. So it's one way to add chocolate without adding that. Number 8, roasted cocoa nibs. If you're gonna add roasted cocoa nibs, 1, try to get fresh ones that you can crack right then and there and drop them in, so that way they're fresh. Something that's been sitting and aging, not so much. But you can also make if you can say that correct, or if I can say it correct. I'm sorry, my English is rough, even though it's my only language. But you can put it in vodka, or if you just want to drop the cocoa nibs straight in, you can clean them with vodka, hot water, but don't let them linger too much, and then put them on in there. Just something to be aware of, whether you're putting them in for a few days or a few weeks. You make sure they're clean. I've seen so many cocoa nibs that people buy from brewing supply companies and stuff, and they look like they've been sitting on a shelf for a while, and they've got about as much dust inside the bag as they do on the outside. So before you drop them in, make sure they're clean. Number 9, if you decide to use cocoa nibs, consider a small business. And I know you're saying, what? It's okay. I've been learning a lot about chocolate recently, and from my understanding that just like coffee, just like beer, what you're adding and how you're doing things affects everything. Think about your grains. They're roasted in different ways to accomplish completely different flavors. So it's the same thing with cocoa nibs. If you have a local small business that produces chocolate locally, reach out to them, talk to the manager. And I don't mean reach out on the phone, go there, meet the manager, meet the owner, tell them what you're trying to accomplish with your beer, and you might be shocked. A lot of them will sell you small batches of cocoa nibs, or cocoa, however you want to call it, and they can say, you know what are you trying for? And you're like, I want this rich chocolate, or I want this nice, smooth, creamy chocolate. They can offer you the cocoa nibs in small batches if they're willing to sell them to you, which from my understanding, some will. Roast it to what you're looking for in your flavor, because they do this before they make their own chocolate. A lot of them are producing it right from ground zero. They get their cocoa nibs directly from farmers that they've either met or they've worked with on the phone for, whether it be months or years. Huge benefit to your beer to know and to be able to do exactly what you want. And if it's off a little or it's not quite where you want it, you go back next time and say, hey, that was great, but could I get a little more flavor out of it? Or could I bring back the bitterness a little bit? It's a resource. It's sitting right there and you probably have it and don't even realize it, but it's something to be aware of, something I'm looking to do next year. So number 10, and this is one of those flavor enhancers that is natural, If you're adding chocolate in any form, consider adding a bit of vanilla extract or vanilla beans to help enhance the perception of the chocolate flavors in beer. If you've ever read the ingredients in your chocolate bar, vanilla is almost always in there. The reason is that vanilla enhances that chocolate and helps that chocolate really stand out. Something you may not have thought of, and I know a lot of people are going, man, I've made a million chocolate beers, but you know what? I've never put vanilla in there. Duh. Try it. I think you'll be shocked. It'll be amazing and it'll bring out that flavor even more. Little bonus tip. I know you saw these things going, what the hell is he doing with those? That's why it's a bonus tip. I kind of consider it something I do all the time, and I kind of consider it kind of a dumb tip, but I have a keezer. My keezer is up high enough that I can't reach the bottom. My arms aren't that long, just simply aren't. So between Star Sand, paper towels, and if you have a keezer, you know what I'm talking about. You get beer spilling over the edge sometimes when you're putting connects on, pulling the disconnects off. I soak the bottom. I use paper towels. I reach down, clean what I can, pull the paper towels out, throw it away. I know it seems dumb, but I love these things. And my wife hates it because she uses them to walk around and pick up stuff without having to bend over, but you know, I take them and use them for other things. Also, every now and then it's good to just take your kegs out, clean the whole bottom and get it super clean, which I do that too. But in between kegs sometimes, yeah, need a little helping hand, should we say. Thank you again for joining us here at Bitter Reality Brewing. Got to get some more videos done, get these ready for 2021 and maybe a little before. Thank you again. Don't forget, like, subscribe. Definitely appreciate all the support. It's been huge. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you again.